Hey, welcome aboard, Captain.
There we go. Now we're moving and grooving and slapping and papping, or
And and a series of other words.
a series of other words that rhyme together.
All right, so it's been a hot minute since we've actually done a podcast, and
Yeah, it's
we've been wanting to do one for a while. And do you remember what I said? Okay, will you show? Actually, I'll show it. I'll show it. Is it okay if I show what I sent you to get the podcast going? Do you remember what I sent you?
Was it just recently?
Yeah.
I don't remember, but I don't think I'll be embarrassed, so you're fine.
No. Okay. So, if you can't tell, I still have a mustache at the moment. You probably can't tell because
Oh
I
yeah,
am
okay, I remember
incapable
that.
of doing such a thing. But I used to have like a type thing, so I decided to um, shave it all off because I was like, yes, it doesn't look that good. But then I shaved off the bottom part and I just left the mustache. I'm like, I'm gonna keep it for a few days, immediately afterwards, I decided to send Hayden a text, and it said, uh, "I must ask you a question, podcast." And I had a picture of me
It was a
with
pretty good picture with a mustache. That
so
was pretty funny.
yeah, and so that's the only reason I wanted to to have the podcast because I don't want to keep this mustache much longer. I want to get rid
You
of
want to
it.
get rid of it?
Welcome to whatever the title is this time.
Anyway, welcome to I must ask you a
Podcast.
question with Hey Man, it's Parma. As we said earlier, it's been a minute, and I definitely think
By
this is
minute, we mean like several weeks
several
and
weeks.
days.
Yeah, I've released quite a bit of music in that time frame, which is
Oh
pretty
yeah,
fun. Yeah, I'm very getting some moves going. Actually, I figured out a way to get my music onto Spotify and Apple Music, and it
What?
should be going up next 2 weeks, 28th.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, keep an eye out for that. That'll be pretty sick. Anyway, so I wanted to either talk about. Okay, so I also texted you that I had finished Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I want to know, did you watch that?
No,
You have to.
I have
It's
never seen an episode of
it's
that.
so good, dude.
I
Like,
know, like the show you're talking about. Like I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember that show from like Saturday cartoons. Like it would play
Nickelodeon.
in between
Yeah.
the cartoon I was
Mhm.
watching. Like, what's the last Airbender? And I'm like, no, I'm busy.
It's so good. I highly recommend it. Do not watch the movie.
That's what I heard. The movie is pretty
It's
trash.
it's bad as an adaptation. It's also bad as a movie in general. Like there are cinematic problems with it.
Bad.
So it's just
Just bad.
straight up a bad movie. But yeah.
Bad.
So back up topic. I recently watched quite a bit of I love watching video essays on different characters that I very much enjoy, different shows that I very much enjoy, and I've watched a ton of video essays on Spider-Man. And I want to
Just
know,
in general.
yeah, just in general, like on
Just
different
as
Spider-Man movies, on different Spider-Man cartoons and whatnot.
right.
So I want to know who, and what do you think is the best Spider-Man? This involves movies, video games, TV shows, anything. What do you think
Okay, so
has
who?
the
You said who and what, but you mean just who?
in general? What
Like which?
which do you think which adaptation of
Oh
Spider-Man do you think is the
gosh.
best?
Oh gosh. So, I'm gonna start off with I'm gonna start off with a thesis statement. No, I'm gonna start off with the fact that I love the show, the cartoon Spectacular Spider-Man,
Same.
and it got pulled off of like everywhere. Like it's not on
You
Netflix.
can't
It's
find it.
not on.
You have to
You
find it
can't find it. You can disc rent it from Netflix.
Hmm.
I don't even know if they do that anymore. Can you still rent discs?
I don't know. That's like Redbox. I don't even know if
But you
Redbox
can.
still
I was about to
exists.
say, I think you can Redbox them as like a season disc or something.
Mm.
Anyway, oh gosh, awesome show.
It's fantastic. It's spectacular. May I say?
It's spectacular, may I say? Just all the character adaptations and everything was
Definitely,
very
yeah.
well done. Yeah, voices,
It's
everything.
very good.
The only thing, Peter Parker didn't quite like look visually how I wanted him to. He as Spider-Man, he looked great. That animation was great. I don't know how I would have changed Peter Parker's look, but
I think it
like that's
was.
like one thing out of a fantastic
Yeah,
show.
honestly, yeah. Yeah.
So, I loved, and for me, it's a big thing is all the villains, all the villain characters, all their
So good.
adaptations and animations and characters and voices. They all hit the nail on the head. I mean, I can't think of one that was off.
Yeah, it was
Um,
really good.
yeah, it was awesome. I'm like reminiscing. We need like a little flashback, like a. Okay, but the best like ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Oh gosh, man. I know you don't agree, but I'm searching around for my favorite, so I'm just hopping to things
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
mind.
No, it's totally fine.
I know you don't agree, but Tom Holland I think is a fantastic Spider-Man in the cinematic universe. I think, yeah, he's just great.
I'll get to my opinion on that later.
I think he just hits it on the head, and later I want to listen to why you don't think so, because I don't think we've ever talked why you don't like it, but I know
Okay.
that you don't.
No, yeah.
But I love, and I also love where they're going with Spider-Man in the cinema, in the realm of cinema, in Sony and Marvel working together.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first Homecoming. Well, he was in Civil War first, wasn't he? But
Mm-hmm.
that was just kind of he was in there.
was just
He did
there.
great in that movie. But his first movie, oh gosh, Vulture as Michael Keaton. Oh my gosh.
Vulture? You mean Michael Keaton as Vulture?
Yes, Vulture as Michael Keaton. Yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. But he did a fantastic job. Knocked it out of the park with that character. I
agree
thought
with
the
that.
design of the character
Mhm.
and
The motivate. Honestly, that character.
everything behind that character was
I
great.
agree with that. I think that character was very well fleshed out, very well written, and also just looked awesome.
And just awesome. Just the character design and all the technology design that went into creating like his character. I think it was a shame that we didn't see. Well, I hope to see more of him because he's still alive.
Yeah.
And he knows Spider-Man is Peter, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm
Yeah.
sure he knows.
I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure he knows. But I wish we could have seen him all masked up, like more on screen. Like part of that movie, what made it so great is he was great out of the mask as a person, as a character, as all his motivation. That was all great. I mean, even Michael Keaton, visually,
I think he fits. He just fits.
He's a great actor, and he fit the part, and he did well. But I wish we could have seen him masked up and not voiced over. You know what I mean?
Like,
but
yeah, like
mask
just
voice fighting Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm bouncing around. So yeah, Spectacular Spider-Man. I don't know who voices him. He was a good Spider-Man in cartoon.
Josh Keaton. That was his name.
Josh Keaton in Spectacular Spider-Man. Tom Holland, I think, is great for cinema. I'm trying to think, man. I really liked Into the Spider-Verse. I liked the way they did Peter and Miles as Spider-Men, as different Spider-Men. Oh gosh, I think those are my thoughts. I don't know if I have a favorite. Those are what come to mind. Yeah, those are what come to mind.
Those are the ones that stick out.
Spectacular Spider-Man is definitely up there because that was just like it wasn't necessarily childhood. I can't remember when those were out.
2008.
I remember watching them, but I don't think I watched them on television. I think I watched them after the fact, but that was like a part of my childhood, and that was a fantastic show. And I still think it is, at being a nerd. It's still a great show. every so often I'll catch like clips on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, boop, view that
It's like,
one.
love it.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, take it away, Sean.
All right. So Spider-Man, let me just preface. Spider-Man has and always will be my favorite superhero.
Yes, we
It's
know that. We know, Sean.
since the Raimi movies, always been my favorite superhero. Always. And while watching the Raimi movies, I was like, that's Spider-Man. While watching the Mark Webb movies with Andrew Garfield, I was like, that's still, I don't know why, but I was like, that's Spider-Man to me.
Yeah.
That still was Spider-Man.
Uh-huh.
And then Spectacular Spider-Man, I love that show. I actually, a month ago, I went back and watched, no. Recently, I went back and watched it, the whole thing. It's fantastic. It's so good. It's spectacular.
It's spectacular.
And then
Spectacular.
and then the Spider-Man PS4 game. I didn't get to play it because I don't have a PS4.
Yeah,
But
you
that's
know what?
really, really good.
Yeah.
It's so well written, and I think if that was a Spider-Man movie, that would be my favorite Spider-Man movie because it's so good.
Obviously, it needed live action.
yeah.
Obviously,
It's so
it
good.
was super well done graphically. But yeah, if you put actors and all that, and yeah,
It's so
that
good.
is true. That was a good. I've never played the game. Kind of want to play the game. But
I do too, yeah. But it was so good. I was like, this is. I watched it. And I was like, this is Spider-Man, and then Into the Spider-Verse. To this day, I love that movie for so many reasons.
to this day.
Because the animation's fantastic. First off, it's embracing the fact that it's a comic book movie, so it's like actually a living comic book, which is super awesome. The music is great. The acting is great. The character development is great. And the soundtrack is so like meticulous and so well written, and it fits so well. It's really cool. And I was like, that's Spider-Man. And notice I haven't talked about one version of Spider-Man, and that's Tom Holland. I don't hate the MCU Spider-Man. I really don't. I don't hate it at all. I like Homecoming and I like Far From Home. But
big giant butt
ginormous BUT. I don't feel like he's Spider-Man. I watched Homecoming and I'm like, this is a good movie, but it didn't feel like Spider-Man to me. I was watching it and I was like, something's missing. There is something missing. And like, I didn't know what it was at the time. And then like later on, I researched it more. I watched more about it and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, and researched a lot more about the Spider-Man character. And then Into the Spider-Verse came out after the fact. And I was like, why was that a better Spider-Man movie than what the MCU can make? Because like MCU already makes fantastic movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
And so like I was watching video essays on why I might think this thing and why other people also think this way. And I came up with 3 points that I think are very I'm dead set on voicing this. Okay, so in Spider-Man Homecoming, or compare Spider-Man Homecoming to Spectacular Spider-Man. Spectacular Spider-Man, I think, is the best adaptation of Spider-Man ever. Like in general, it's so good. And one thing that I think that show does super well is consequences, and how Peter reacts to those consequences, to the situations that he's put in. He always puts the little guy before him. He always does what he thinks is right. And we see that. And regardless of what consequences may follow, whether or not he's going to ditch his friends or whether or not he's going to lose money or anything like that, he faces that consequence and he knows that he did the right thing.
Right.
One of the problems I have with Homecoming, what consequences does Peter have in that movie?
I mean, I guess that's not really a consequence. But he loses what's her face, But we didn't really care about what's her
Yeah,
face.
exactly. It's a high school crush. It wasn't like a what was it? It was like Liz. Liz, right?
Yeah, Liz. Yep.
The high
I
school
kind of forgot
crush.
about her. Let's see. Liz. He lost Liz, but whatever. I guess really just his persona. But I see where you're going with the fact that he didn't really.
Have any consequences.
Right. I mean, he knew what he was doing was right, but there was no like direct consequence.
Hmm.
He was just worried about what's Vulture's name in this show? Let me remember.
I don't even remember.
It's because it's Liz and then Liz.
Liz's father.
Liz's father. Can't remember.
Yeah.
But he knew that was not gonna like end well, or at least that's what he was projecting.
Okay. Yeah.
But and he was also trying to protect Iron Man, but that's kind of like a deep basis.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see where you're going.
Yeah. You see where I'm
Continue.
going. Okay.
Continue.
So compare Spectacular Spider-Man, which in the show there are a ridiculous amount of consequences, and even in Spider-Man 2, the one with Doc Ock and Tobey Maguire, that one
Right. Yep.
illustrates that very well. He has a ridiculous amount of consequences in that movie. Like
Mhm.
everything that he tries to do right, something bad happens because of it.
Mhm.
And in Spectacular Spider-Man, he betrays his friends. He loses his internship at the college labs. He
Mhm.
just thinking of more. He ends up accidentally like ditching his girlfriend, who by some luck he was able to actually get, and all these sorts of things. But in Spider-Man Homecoming, the only one that I can really think of is, yeah, he didn't get Liz, but the other one is that he loses his suit.
Right.
And then he gets it back at the end of the movie.
Right.
And personally,
Well-
I think in Homecoming, after he loses the Stark suit, which I have a massive problem with the Stark suit. I don't like the fact that Peter didn't
we'll get
make the
into that.
suit.
We'll get into that.
But after the Stark suit gets taken away, I think that becomes actually a good Spider-Man movie, because you see Spider-Man being scrappy, resourceful, smart, using everything, actually being Spider-Man.
Well, I think that's maybe how they brought it in, is the consequence. Well, he had to learn. I think he had to learn about choices. So, like, he got that suit taken away from him, and like you said, he started to become like a Spider-Man. And so my question is, do you think that he was more like Spider-Man in the Far From Home movie?
No.
You think he was the same?
I think he was less than.
He was less than the first one.
Yes.
Right.
And yeah. And in Far From Home, it's just, I don't think there was a single moment where I was like, this is Spider-Man. None of those moments was like, this is Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
The entire plot I didn't really enjoy. I get like, yeah, summer fling. I'm fine with that. But Spider-Man is a New York hero.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he wasn't worried about being Spider-Man, and he was like, I need a break. Let's go. That I have a big problem with, and that's because he essentially forgot why he's Spider-Man. And that's another problem I have with the MCU. Why is Spider-Man Spider-Man? What caused Spider-Man to become Spider-Man?
Right. Well, it's because they kind of just... Well, the thing is, they based the MCU Spider-Man off of Spider-Man. So they didn't really... You didn't get him coming up as Spider-Man. What you got was... What I still think is a great character. But what you got was that first thing with Stark jumping in into what we know as Spider-Man. Got bit by a spider.
Yeah,
he's a nerd. He's a geek.
we all know the
He
origin
makes his own equipment. It's exactly.
Yeah.
So they didn't. that may have been something that has caused that for you, and for them to kind of fall out of Spider-Man being Spider-Man is they just jumped into what Spider-Man already was instead of either setting it up again or setting it up different, which they could still do. But
Yeah, but my biggest problem with it is, so in Spectacular Spider-Man, it doesn't start out with the Spider-Man origin story that we all know. We all know it happens. But at some points, there is still reference to one major important character in Spider-Man, in Peter Parker's character, and that's Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben is the reason that Peter is Spider-Man. He's the man who he considered his father,
right,
who he loved, who he cared about, and who told him that with great power comes great responsibility, and that because he didn't listen to his uncle, he lost him. He died.
right.
And after that point, Peter was like, I'm never letting that happen again. But Ben is not referenced once by name, or like barely at
I was
all.
about to say by name. He's referenced.
He's referenced in the fact like,
Cinematic.
I can't do that to May. May has been through too much, with everything that's going on.
He
That's
was,
it.
and also the suitcase.
And
is
that's
the other thing.
it.
I agree. He should have been brought up more. Like I said, they just jumped into what we already knew.
But the thing is,
Yeah.
that Ben Parker is a reoccurring character in Peter's life, not a reoccurring character in the fact that we see him every single day or like all the time or in flashbacks or anything like that. It's because whenever Peter Parker is about to quit being Spider-Man, I remember there's this one scene in Spectacular Spider-Man where Spider-Man has a formula in his hand where he can drink it and not be Spider-Man anymore. He's about to drink it, but like in his view, there's a picture of him, Aunt May, and Ben. He looks at it and he's like, I can't do it. I made a promise because I lost someone that I cared about.
Right.
And that's another problem I have with Far From Home. He's willing to just leave the neighborhood that he's supposed to protect. He's supposed to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but we never see him in the neighborhood being friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And so he just kind of forgot about the responsibility, I guess, because of I really don't like how they've written Spider-Man, man. I think Tom Holland could and is a perfect casting. He can nail it.
So you think it's
the writing.
The writing of the character has been under
and a hindrance in the fact that he's no longer Spider-Man. They've tried to shoot. Think about it like this. Spider-Man Homecoming is severely shoehorned into the MCU. Iron Man is a main character in that movie. Same with Far From Home. Who else is a main character in the bigger MCU in that movie? Nick Fury. Even though it's not really Nick Fury, but that's not important. It's still shoehorned in there. That's not
important and confusing, but whatever.
It's not a self-contained Spider-Man story that takes place in the neighborhood that he protects. That's my biggest problem. He doesn't feel like a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. It's so different. It's just, that's my problems with it. So Spectacular Spider-Man, I think, nails all those points on the head and then some. It's so good. But yeah. What do you think about the Amazing Spider-Man movies?
They were fine.
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield was a great Spider-Man and a bad Peter Parker.
See, I agree and disagree with that.
And
because
the villains were not good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Which makes it a bad movie.
That's true. I agree and disagree with that because Mark Webb, the director, wanted to go a different than Raimi. Because Raimi definitely nailed home the nerdy, the geeky, the dorky Peter Parker. But I think Raimi made him, or no, Mark Webb made Spider-Man, made Peter Parker a lot like a teenager, like nowadays. Like
Right.
extremely, because think about it. You're what, 17 years old. You're not liked at school. You're gonna be moody as frick. You're gonna be quiet. You're gonna be cocky.
Right.
You're gonna be sarcastic. You're gonna be a jerk to people.
Right.
And that was illustrated, I think, very well. And I think that the darker tone, I don't have a problem with. I think that's fine
Right.
because Spider-Man still was jokey. He was funny. He was still kind of that beacon of light in the first Amazing Spider-Man. And the only reason that those movies flopped and were as bad as they were is because of Sony. They messed with Spider-Man movies. It's the same thing that they did with Spider-Man 3. That's why that one is the worst of the three movies. It's because of Sony that Spider-Man sucks. Actually, specifically, it's because of Avi Arad, who is like one of the executive producers who was the main reason that Spider-Man 3 sucked. Or not sucked, but was not nearly as good as it could have been and all this stuff. But yeah, I think Amazing Spider-Man actually could have been something truly amazing. I'm going to keep doing that same terrible joke.
Truly spectacular. The villains were not.
They were subpar at best.
Their design was not good. Their character development was not good.
Actually, I think
their casting was horrible.
Yeah.
Their casting was, I mean, that's my viewpoint. Their casting was just trash.
I think the Lizard, Dr. Connors, I think he was great.
He was the best out of them.
Yes, absolutely.
Still not great.
I still think I think he's underrated. Also, they took out a lot of dialogue between Peter and Dr. Connors to give him more character development.
Right.
And I also think that the design that they went for Lizard is terrible. That's really bad. But other than that, I think that the Lizard is much, much better.
He's a great character, and they took him to a certain point, but he
didn't go enough. Didn't go the distance.
They didn't go enough with anything, and then all the other villains are underneath that subpar character, and you're just like, it's like who played Electro? Was that
Jamie Foxx? Jamie Foxx is a great actor, but
Jamie Foxx is a fantastic actor. But I saw him and I was like, "What are you doing?"
It's like I don't know if this fits.
This is not. It didn't mesh at all.
Yeah.
Yep.
Spider-Man
didn't mesh at all. The original Spider-Man series,
I think is great.
The villains were cast. Well, the third one.
Okay, the third one. The only problem I have with that is Venom. If they took out all the Venom parts, it would have been a much better movie.
That's because he wasn't done.
He was shoehorned in there.
Goblin, whoever played, I can't remember.
Willem Dafoe.
I can see actors. Yes, I can see actors in my mind. I just don't know their names. Green Goblin was done well, and Norman Osborn's character was done well. They petered away when the Sun started to when the Sun figured it out and all
James
that
Franco.
jazz. Doc Ock, whoever did his character, his character was developed very well, designed very well, acted very well. It was very well done. Yeah.
Spider-Man 2 is considered to be the best of those three movies. And I'd agree. Enrique loves that movie. He said he's
a funny guy. He likes certain movies and not others. I don't understand his. We haven't sat down and talked about his taste and his viewpoint because he'll be like, "Well, that movie was trash," and then I'll say something else. Like, "Oh, that movie was great." I'm like,
"What?"
What?
Yeah, we'll have Enrique. We'll have Enrique on the podcast, and we'll talk about movie tastes.
Yep. Okay, so who's your favorite Spider-Man villain? Why and what adaptation if you could pick one?
Spider-Man.
See, this is my question because you're about Spider-Man. The development and portrayal of villains is so important to a movie.
It's key. If you
It's
can have you could have a semi well developed. Actually, I take that back. Both. I was about to say protagonist doesn't need to be as developed as. No, they both need to be very well developed.
They both have to
Actually,
be very well
Marvel
developed.
movies have proven otherwise because some of those bad guys were not good, not well developed at all.
Yeah, but they picked up in other ways, and just because the character wasn't developed very long doesn't mean
it took away from
like
the
an
movie.
interesting character or
Yeah,
villain. Yeah, they were interesting while they were there, and it's like, oh, I want to see more of that, which we may or may not, depending on certain characters.
Yeah. So for me, I think Doc Ock is the best Spider-Man villain, and then the Doc Ock from Spider-Man PS4. Because how they wrote him him as Peter Parker's friend. They made you not want him to turn into Doc Ock. We all know that he's going to, but they made us not want that to happen. Genius.
Right.
Genius. Because geeks like us are gonna be like, oh, that guy is gonna be Doc Ock. And then it happens, and you're like, no.
Well, it's that separation that creates Doc Ock so good in PS4 and in other movies.
Yes.
It's the separation. Spider-Man 2 is another example. We'll keep bringing it up. But it's the separation of his two characters. You have the scientist, the genius, who knows right from wrong. He knows his moral standpoint. And then you have Doc Ock. You have the
side that
character.
The side that's been pushed over to the edge.
Him as a character, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's super good. That's really super hard to mess up. Like, as a character, when you have that basis for every adaptation ever, that's the way the character is he's this scientist who has a moral right from wrong. He's not perfect. But
something
then the
happens.
Arms come into play. And it's like, how do you mess that up? So yours is PS4 Doc Ock, and Doc Ock is the best.
Mm-hmm. What about you?
Hold on. Are you on your computer? What are you on?
I am on my computer.
Throw up. No, I don't want to answer your text. Can you pull up an image? Can you screen share an image of PS4 Doc Ock? Just so people have reference.
Yeah. Hold on.
I thought the design of this character was very well done as well. Once it's popped up, I'll kind of point stuff out. You know what's in my head? Spectacular Spider-Man.
That's a good one. Can you see it?
Pick this. That one right there. Cursor's on it. I want to see if you picked it. Yeah.
There we go.
So
yeah, that's
the
really
development of his character. Yes, the design very well done, especially for the theme of the PS4 version and just everything that went into it.
I think everything in that version of Spider-Man is sick. Like the suit is awesome. I love the suit.
Oh yeah, the
it's
contrast
so
in
good.
the suit is amazing. Yeah. But no, they really nailed. Yeah, they really nailed him on the head. And like you said, his development as a friend
into a villain is fantastic.
Yes. And the development of the Arms as a character was very well done in this one. It's most predominantly fantastic in Spider-Man 2.
Yes.
As they're portrayed as a literal character. They're a part of him, part of his persona, but they're portrayed as a literal character. And I think they did very well with the CGI and with the design and with the costume. I mean, those guys fascinate me in any movie.
Oh, yes, yeah.
All right, so Doc Ock. Your favorite is Doc Ock.
Yes. What about you?
Classic. Oh, me. It's hard. They're all fantastic. It's rough. I really love. I mean, I'm just gonna go through the list. I'm horrible at this because I never have favorites for lots of things. You're like, what kind of ice cream do you like? The cold kind. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I just want ice cream. So Vulture is a great character, and I think that the MCU nailed him on the head.
I think they did good with that,
the
too.
Homecoming movie, and I hope they continue to nail him as they go. I hope that they don't change his design too much.
Because I think, I think it was very
I really
realistic,
love
very good.
very realistic scrapper technology that we kind of envision and we can visualize properly.
It
I
makes
almost
semi-sense.
I'm going off on a tangent, but this is part of the podcast. I almost liked his first adaptation of his Suit and Wings better. Just the look and the design, they had a more vulture feel. When you look at a vulture and you think of the aspects of the animal, the scrapper, the scavenger, it sort of brought that up from what he was trying to do, and that made sense. But I did appreciate the second adaptation, as it was the same idea and concept, but it was better
amplified
as he continued on in his goal.
Mm-hmm.
Great scene, by the way, when Peter comes in the warehouse. When Peter comes in the warehouse and Vulture's just casually just sitting there, and the conversation that happens, the dialogue.
I think that is really good. And then one of the great Spider-Man moments after that, when he's like lifting up, is like, "Come on, Spider-Man!" I thought that was great.
Yeah, that was great. Great character. The MCU version nailed it on the head. Spectacular Spider-Man's Vulture is well done, but I will admit he's one of my least. He's lower on the list. He's at least under the MCU Vulture, but he's lower on the list, and I think it's just because of design, not the design of his character, but the design of his equipment. Essentially, his equipment wasn't.
It didn't scream Vulture.
Vulture-y. Yeah. And that's part of the character that I think is very important. I mean, that's what I loved about the MCUs. He's got these big old. One of my favorite shots, which I wish I could like blow up and put on my wall, is him sitting on the lamppost, and his wings are like tucked behind him,
like an actual vulture.
Just like, yes, he's just sitting there and just like observing. That's a great shot. Anyway, okay. Doc Ock is great, and I think my favorite adaptation of him is Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire.
That's a good one.
Fantastic job. Let's see, what else? Shocker, I did not appreciate in the MCU.
Yeah.
How it was passed around. The idea it was passed around was fine, but the characters it got passed to were not right. I do love Shocker in Spectacular Spider-Man. I love the fact that they kept the quilt design, and I also like the fact that he is his southern character. I like the way I can't remember like originally, and it doesn't. When you originally look at characters like in the original comics and stuff, there's no voice, there's personality, but it's very hard unless you put them in a cartoon or a live action.
Yeah,
I think that's the best Shocker is from Spectacular Spider-Man.
That's good.
Some of his lines just are the best. They make me smile. His most famous one, I'm gonna squash you, and you're like, oh, it's just great. And I thought that, what are they called? The Enforcers. So before he kind of
became the Shocker, he was previously. So
he was with the Enforcers.
I like that too.
Guys are fun.
How they they eventually turned into their own villains in a way. Yeah, I thought that was really cool too.
That was fun. I do like Rhino.
Especially, in Spectacular Spider-Man, especially.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is Spectacular Spider-Man one of the best? But also, I'm asking you to do too much work. If you pull up PS4's Rhino, and PS4's Rhino didn't have as much, and this is a character that really doesn't involve a lot of development, but he still creates this character, this classic, just big, strong guy. I mean, that's a lot. There's very little development in that. Spectacular Spider-Man did it great, and when you pull up the design for PS4, PS4 didn't really build on his development a lot, but they nailed the design so much that, like, it makes me cry at night. Like, this is fantastic. Oh, that picture right there. Just the way... Go back one to the one it's in the corner. Top left. Yes. I mean, just the way that they created this character
Yeah, I think he looks
set it
awesome.
apart from other adaptations. The way that he has been modified, but lots of it is technological, and it talks about a little bit I've watched some gameplay for it, and it develops his character within the gameplay instead of like the story and stuff, and what his plan is and stuff like that. But I thought his design was fantastic. What else?
You gotta wrap it up, man. You're going through every single one.
I know.
You should just say. Might as well just say Sinister Six.
Yeah, Sinister Six. Spider-Man villains are one of the best developed and designed villains. There's fallings here and there, and there's definitely great bad guys other places, but the Spider-Man universe, the Spider-Man story has lots.
I definitely agree. Spider-Man and Batman have the two best villain galleries of all time. Easily.
Spider-Man a little more lighter, but Batman does have a lot of like dark reality, well developed
like
villains.
Just
That's a whole other podcast.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
Quick, speed, lightning question. Who's your favorite Bane? And if you say the wrong one, I will come and smash your skull in.
Favorite Bane? Oh, the one from Young Justice.
Okay, you like Young Justice Bane. Okay.
I love Young Justice as a show. That is another can of worms that needs to be opened eventually.
That needs to be opened in another podcast. All right, good choice. I don't have a favorite. I was just asking.
Oh yeah, I'm much more decisive.
Yeah. When it comes to this, yes. You're like, what's your favorite? Like, I mean, obviously, cinema and TV and everything we're talking about is awesome, and I love it. But when it comes to things that like aren't real, to no offense to anybody, but it's like I don't, like I said, all Spider-Man villains are very well developed and great characters that can be put into different adaptations. So
yeah.
People are like, what's your favorite team? It's like, it's all here. I don't have to have a favorite. I can just keep watching it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right.
Oh, call me dumb or sue me, whatever. I don't care.
Call me dumb or sue me.
You don't have favorites? Yeah, what about it? Don't talk to my dad. Don't ever put my dad on the podcast. He's worse than I am.
Oh, really? He's like, what does favorite mean?
Yeah, what is the word favorite? Sweet. Are we out of time?
Yeah, we're catching up. Let's round it out.
Catching up, what does that mean? 10 minutes or like 30 seconds?
Yeah, like closer to 30 seconds than 10 minutes. It's all right though. Thank you everybody for watching. Any last words for this wonderful podcast?
That was in depth. That was a serious podcast. That was good. I had fun. Just don't. I don't know what I was gonna say.
Just don't.
Nike's just do it. Just sometimes, just don't.
Just don't. For me, let us know in the comments if you want us to bring on more guests, because I think we're going to. And I think
for sure.
I think next week we should try and get together. Like you come over to my house and we'll actually do one in person.
I might be able to do that. Yeah.
I think that would be really cool.
I just work when you work.
Yeah.
And also hit in the comments. Give us more. I mean, we have a plethora of superheroes and things to talk about. But what do you want to hear?
Yeah.
Is what we want to know.
That's true. Because I can guarantee that there's a lot of people that don't want to hear about Spider-Man for an entire podcast.
Or if you're like, shut up about Spider-Man, talk about something else.
Talk about lighthouses.
Gosh dang it. I thought we were going to make it.
Nope.
They need to make a Spider-Man story where he lives in a lighthouse.
Yes. Actually, we need to, both of us need to see the movie called The Lighthouse with Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson.
What's it about? Oh my gosh, we're running out of time and you're bringing up things.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about it another time.
Go. I'm kidding. The Lighthouse. Oh, I'll look it up.
It's like a black and white movie. It's pretty sick. But anyway,
like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, everyone. Living on the edge, fighting crime, spinning webs, leaping from the highest ledge. She can leap above our heads.
Villains on the rise and the city's victimized. Looking up with no surprise, arriving in the speed of time.